Raise a pint to the friend who's sitting on your right, and a pint to the friend on your left. Raise a pint to the friend who bought your first round tonight, and a pint to the friend who's gonna buy your last. Raise a pint to your host, Steve and Korey, and a pint to their special guest. But save one last pint to raise to yourself for listening to the Rotating Tap Podcast.
Helps if it's recording. Okay, there we go. Hello, welcome to the Rotating Tap Comedy Podcast. My name is Steve Vanderplug.
I'm Korey David.
And we are here today in Korey's sad house.
Hey man, we're moving. Like I promise that things aren't in boxes all the time. We don't just live like this. Just cardboard boxes for furniture.
I did see the empty dog cage on the way in.
There is a dog.
That's actually where Korey sleeps there.
We actually
I haven't seen a dog since I've gotten here.
Well, we had to box him up.
I'm supposed to help Korey move his quote-unquote bed frame, a.k.a. the kennel, to his new place on Tuesday.
It's really comfortable. And there's a nice little dog bed that I use in there. And if I close the door and I latch it, then I'm not going to fall out. You know, it's like a
Yeah. It's a great place to gnaw on your own ankles. We're here today with Jonathan from Westword.
Hello.
And Keith, who runs some beer tours in Rhino.
Yeah.
Hello.
Epic Days Travel, right?
Correct.
Cool.
Yeah.
Epic Days Travel is the name of the company.
Yeah, thanks a lot for being on the podcast, guys.
Yeah, thank
Shoot
you.
up.
We appreciate you guys being here. Korey, what do you want to... Oh, did you tell him what we normally make him do up top?
Yeah, so as comics, the first thing that people usually ask us when they find out is, tell us a joke. So we're going to put you guys on the spot right now and get the podcast started with a joke or two from you.
All right. Geez. So, I got a long one and I got a short one. I'd much rather tell the short one.
Yeah, we probably prefer that also.
It's probably
Although unless you've heard it before, it's the one about the interrupting cow. I don't know if you guys know
moo.
that one. All right, ready?
All right, I'm ready for it.
All right, knock knock.
Who's there?
The interrupting cow.
The interrupting.
Moo!
So there's two.
But wait, there's a follow up.
Oh wait, there's a tag.
Well, there's a follow up. All right, knock knock.
Who's there?
The interrupting giraffe.
The interrupting giraffe. Who?
Giraffes don't say anything.
Ah, you got us, you slick son of a bitch.
well done.
Well done.
much.
That's good. That's good.
To be fair, I never heard that second part. My niece taught me the first one.
All
But
right, good. I'm
Yeah,
glad.
don't second guess yourself right out of the gate.
I'm glad I brought something fresh.
knock knock.
Something unique to the table.
Yeah. I'm a lawyer in my other life, so all I have is lawyer jokes.
Oh yeah, let's get some of those.
Yeah, totally. Why'd God make snakes before lawyers?
Why?
He needed some practice.
Nice.
That's all I got.
That's pretty solid though. I like that.
One hot lawyer joke. Very cool.
Yeah.
So we usually start this out. We want to have some beers while we're just hanging out at the table, but we've noticed that it's actually better if we just get the best part of the show out of the way first.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
that way you guys just, if you chug a beer, it'll loosen you up and then make for a better conversation.
Yeah, and then you can pace yourself for the rest of the time. We're gonna have some fun. What are we chugging today?
Yeah, so what did you guys bring to chug? I'll grab them out of the fridge.
All right. Well, I brought the brand new peanut butter milk stout from Left Hand.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm trying to cheat a little bit because I feel like the milk stout will make it go down a little easier.
I've got a
the-
Colorado native here.
That's perfect because
Yes.
I have a
Yes.
Korey lives like a fucking child on Rumspringa. Just has plastic glasses, so I had to bring actual glasses
Listen,
to his
I live
house.
a wild life. You know, I can't have glass around the house.
Notice you guys have us chugging beer and you're drinking Red Bull and coffee.
Well, I'm not a morning person, and
We'll
I
ask
will
the
I will be
questions,
drinking beer. However, I cannot drink the left hand because I am deathly allergic to peanuts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but keep it on the other side.
Actually, I wish that you wouldn't have told him that it was the peanut butter one, so we could just watch Steve have a seizure right on
It's
the
not
podcast.
it's not a seizure as much as like my throat swells up and then people can't listen to my angelic voice on this podcast.
Yeah. So, I do love all the left-hand milk stout stuff. They do so many great like adjunct and variation beers that the chai one that they do is still like one of my favorite things to enjoy on like a cold day or just whenever you're looking for something a little more hearty. Nice transfer. I like that. That was good. That was pretty great. Just went from like a 12-ounce rocks glass to a pint. That's pretty.
I feel like it's only fair if I do the whole thing.
Yeah, that's fair.
I always tell people this on my tours, but I don't know if it's actually true that the Left Hand Milk Stout is probably the second most popular stout in the country. Is that correct?
I would say so.
Yeah, they
After what, Guinness?
Yeah.
Yeah, they kicked out so many Guinness tap lines over the last few years. They debuted it in 2011, and it just took off, and it's a huge beer across.
Well,
the
when you
country.
think about it, who else is really putting out a nitro stout with that much distribution around the country? Like, there really isn't anybody else in the game. And I know that the past couple years they've been hitting it really hard with national distribution and literally gunning for Guinness lines specifically.
Yep.
But there's really just nothing else in that category.
How big is largely distributed is Smithwick's? They've got to be pretty nationally, don't they?
It's one of those beers that has national distribution, but it has just like a hyper regional attention span in terms of like how people actually receive it. You know, like it's really big in the Northeast where there's a predominantly like Irish population, but then after that, like it's kind of hit or miss. Like if you have an Irish pub somewhere that they just want to be as authentic as they can be,
sure,
like Smithwick's on or Kilkenny or any of that stuff. But I'd say Left Hand definitely dominates that number 2 spot.
Yeah, I think Breckenridge had their Nitro Vanilla Porter for a while.
Right, yeah.
I don't know how popular it is around the rest of the country. It's pretty popular, but I'm not sure that it quite holds up to the Left Hand as far as I know.
No, I don't think they attacked the distribution as hard, especially when they got bought by AB InBev. Like, I'm sure they went like a totally different route in terms of what they were going to use for a flagship that they could put in basically every bar around the country. Their amber seemed to be like a big focus for them when they started rolling out everywhere. The good old classic Colorado amber.
Yeah,
everybody
Avalanche.
everybody makes. Everybody and their mom makes an amber ale.
The standard amber, Colorado.
Yeah. So tell us. So here we're gonna have you do a couple different things. Anybody want to go first?
Actually, I just want to say real quick that amber is the color of Colorado's energy. Okay, go on.
Yeah. Whoa.
All right. Moving right along, back to what Korey was
311
saying.
podcast
Right.
in addition to a craft beer and comedy podcast.
Yeah, you could say it's a natural disaster. What's does that disaster? Okay, beer time.
Keith, you got quite a head on that one. buddy.
Yeah, I did the worst pour in the world while I'm sitting here trying to get this to settle a little bit.
Yeah, clearly pouring beer out of a can
Yeah.
is not part of your brewery.
No, I do none of the pouring.
That's fine. I'm sure it'll go down just as easy. So do we have a volunteer for who would like to go first?
I will. I'll spare you having to deal with that.
Well, we also have a new rule, and I don't think it's going to apply to either of you. But we have a new rule that you get 3 seconds off your chugging time if you drink a beer that is over 8% ABV.
Yeah. So you could call an audible right now and chug one of those breakfast lagers that we tapped. This one's 6, the peanut butter stout 6, which is still pretty good. And I do have to commend you because most people when they do this, they always pick like a Helles or a Pilsner,
Some
or
kind
a
of
Kolsch.
lager.
You got some
Ew.
gall.
Yeah, that's
I'm not
impressive.
screwing around.
That is
No.
impressive.
But to be fair, I mean, it's silky smooth, probably goes down pretty easy. It's
6%.
sweet, very enjoyable, low carbonation. I
Yep.
think you actually snaked in the more appropriate route here.
Well,
It's
we'll
like-
see if I can even do
Yeah.
it.
Eating peanut butter right from the can.
Ah, so good. It's the peanut
breakfast.
butter junkie, man.
I wouldn't know. I have no idea.
Did you know you have to rinse out your peanut butter jars before you recycle them?
No, I don't know.
Did you guys
I've
know
never
that?
had a peanut butter jar.
You've never
No.
had. Oh yeah, that's right. Because you could die.
Yeah, call back to
forgot
like
about
that's
that.
true.
4 minutes ago.
I just found that out, and I'm 31 years old. It's kind of. I don't know if it's embarrassing or enlightening. Now I can live the rest of my life doing right by the environment.
Yeah, just keep cleaning it out.
Wash those jars.
Wash the
Haven't-
jars, save the planet.
It only takes like 15
All right,
gallons
my
of
head's
water to
getting
rinse
smaller.
out the
Yeah.
all that peanut butter.
Yeah, and I'm sure the turtles appreciate it.
There we go.
Everybody's attacking the turtles. So, Jonathan, you want to go first? Is that
Yep.
what you said?
All right.
Okay, so tell us, you're going to do 2 things. You're going to tell us what the beer is, just the name of it, and then chug it. Steve will time it for you. And then as soon as you're done, you have to immediately tell us about the beer. Even if you're a little gassy, a little burpy,
Just
that's
burp right
fine.
out.
We encourage it. Belchability is a big factor on the chuggable beer portion, and we encourage that.
All right. This is Left Hand's Peanut Butter Milk Stout, 12-ounce can. And you ready?
I'm ready.
Here goes.
Are you ready? Oh wow! For a
Better than
stout.
Very
I thought.
impressive,
I was gonna
very
say,
impressive.
He just rolled his eyes while he
Yeah.
was chugging, as if like, this is the best you've got.
All right. I mean, not the best time we've had, but still,
respectable.
yes,
All right,
absolutely.
so tell us about what you just drank.
All right. Well, this Left Hand is employee owned. It's one of the few breweries that is employee owned, and I could taste all the employees.
I feel like
Just
you're really
their
holding
sweat
back
and
the burp
tears.
here, and I just so you know, you don't have to. If you got a fart too, you can do that as well.
I appreciate that. No, this beer is just pure peanut butter. It is one of the most peanut buttery peanut butter beers I've ever had, and I've had a lot of peanut butter beers.
Sounds.
How many peanut butter beers
Yeah.
have you had?
It's great. It's terrific. Incredibly smooth, and just loaded. I would love to try it on nitro.
Yeah, the nitro version of all this stuff, it just adds that extra texture component that you can't get with CO2, but makes it even, it complements the flavor of the peanut butter like so well, because when you think of peanut butter, I mean, you're just usually having like it's creamy, smooth, it's got that thickness to it, so when you have a nitro beer, it definitely like makes it a way better experience.
Yep.
This is something that comes up on the podcast a lot. I do not like nitro. I don't like nitro in beer. I don't like nitro in coffee. Just not a fan. I would rather drink a regular stout than a nitro stout.
We
any
all
day.
can't be perfect, you know.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
well-
all can't be great people.
You know what I hate more than nitro is peanut butter. So
So this is death in a can.
Yeah,
First
I'll leave one of these for you then. Here.
nice,
Leave
cool.
it for me. I'm happy to have it.
I feel like peanut butter is the hot new flavor in beer right now.
Yeah, but it's a pain in the ass to brew with. Like I've known people that have done it both ways, where they use actual peanut butter,
Yep.
which is a nightmare to clean out of tanks. And then the popular route these days is to either use like a peanut butter powder or use just like a flavoring extract. But the powder seems to be the better way to go. Does it say on the can if they use one in particular?
I'm looking malted barley, lactose, flaked oats, peanuts, hops, yeast.
So actual peanuts.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Ugh. Hey. Ugh.
So they're literally, Steve is just dancing around us while we're
Yeah,
we're
I'm
sipping
just
this.
like, well,
I mean,
this is a fun
take my
one for
word for
me.
it. It's really good.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
delicious.
sure.
They should
Cool.
come out with a chunky version that's that's unfiltered.
Nice. That would be something.
Yeah, it's just got some floaties at the bottom
Yeah.
when you pour it into a glass.
Yep, mix a little jelly in there, some Wonder Bread, dip it in.
Yeah,
I have had
just
that
have
before
a sandwich.
too, like a PB&J, where they just add like a raspberry or strawberry flavor extract in addition to the peanut butter. And the more they
Amazing.
make this catered to children, I think the better off the beer industry is going to be at large.
Yeah, I agree. There should be a chicken nugget beer, I guess, at some point.
That has
or-
to exist.
That's coming. That's
Dinosaur,
coming.
dinosaur shapes.
yeah,
Only.
dinosaur nuggets.
That could be your sequel book,
Right? Yeah. Oh,
the chicken nugget beer,
right.
Just do like a cookbook
or the
with all
kids book,
Yeah.
Perfect for the kids.
kids version.
All right, so Keith, tell us. So you picked Colorado Native.
Yes,
a classic
I do
Colorado beer.
Correct. I feel like it's destiny too, because there was this Colorado native glass just waiting to get poured into
Perfect.
that
Yeah.
you guys provided. So
Yeah, that
what do
I
you got?
provided, not Korey. Okay.
Not me. 'Cause we only use plastic and solo cups.
Yeah, the classic amber lager from Colorado.
Cool.
All right, here we
Steve
go.
will time you once you get
This could be
going.
nowhere close to anything you guys have
I'm
recorded
sure it'll
yet.
be respectable. If it's not, we'll just mock you for it.
We've got some.
true.
We've got some bad ones.
All right, here we go.
Oh yeah, that's
He's
a great
doing
start.
fine.
Yeah,
I
he's
think
like
a lot of it's ego.
just
but
psyching
it's
himself out, and all right, nice,
Not bad. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
You'd be pleasantly surprised with how terrible some people do.
Mm-hmm.
My co-host included. What was your time? Like 13 something seconds?
My time was 13.98.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to argue that, or guess that I'm the oldest person in this room, and I haven't chugged a beer probably in at least about 8 years. So
This is when he relapses.
yeah, exactly. I'll be in therapy after this.
So tell us about the beer.
This is the Colorado Native, I believe, and I might not know this correctly, but it's still made in the Korey Brewery factory.
That sounds right.
Yeah, and but I think it's a separate label.
It is now, yeah.
yeah.
Because they have a bunch of different renditions of it.
This is a beer that I always find that after I've had a couple of strong microbrews, this is one that I really enjoy just kind of settling down with later in the night. It's easy drinking, just a good amber lager.
Nice.
Yeah, the owner of Ratio was telling us that he was working at like the Colorado Native facility like before he started at Ratio, if I remember correctly.
I
He
think
was
that's
working on a lot of the stuff over there, which was just like good experience working on like a bigger brewing equipment, bigger brewing
a
system.
big system.
Yeah, until you can kind of translate it to what you want to do specifically.
Yeah, I forget that there was because I remember when Colorado Native came out, it was probably about 9 or 10 years ago that they're like, we're gonna have it only in Colorado, and I feel like it's probably in other places now.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
The only time I really have seen it is when I'm here, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they've kept it Colorado only so far. I kept sort of expecting them to take it outside, but they brew it. It's actually made by their pilot company called AC Golden, and it's like a 20-barrel pilot brewery that's in the middle of their massive factory, and they don't have a whole lot of employees there, but they make this one. They bought all the, or they signed contracts with almost every hop farm on the Western Slope to buy all their hops. And so that they could so that they could make this entirely out of Colorado ingredients. So it's a pretty cool and interesting beer. I do wonder if they're going to take it outside the state. I think they should at some point.
Yeah, with a name like
because
that, I feel like it would go well.
Yeah, I do too.
Really
Colorado
solid.
has enough cachet at this point that it's like you could literally slap it on a product and people would find it like more intriguing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are either of you two natives to Colorado, or did you move here?
Non-native.
I'm a native.
You're native?
Yep.
Nice. We're the only two that are allowed to drink that beer.
Look at you guys.
You have to have your birth certificate when you
Yeah, I
ordered at the
know.
bar.
Two
Yeah,
natives
yeah.
at one table. Oh my
Yep.
gosh.
It used to be like.
Did you guys ever
everybody's-
have the bumper sticker?
No, I had a bumper sticker that said "Red Wings suck," and it got torn off of my car. Never had the native one.
I did not have the native one either. I've always thought about getting one, but it always seemed kind of obnoxious, so I never did.
Yeah, it sounds obnoxious.
Yeah.
It sounds obnoxious, but now there's so many transplants. I think it's like a stamp of pride almost.
Yeah.
You're like one of the last remaining.
Yeah, I could do it, but I prefer to take the low. I prefer to take the low profile,
Yeah.
the high route, the low profile.
I don't want to draw any attention.
Yeah.
Now, how do you feel about a brand like Colorado Native being, obviously being made by Miller Coors? And if you were just visiting here, you might not know that that's who makes it, right? So there's a lot of like cloak and dagger kind of stuff in the beer industry these days where somebody buys a brewery like a Breckenridge and they don't advertise that it's bought. And everybody's got grandiose opinions about like big business and beer and supporting small and local. But I don't know. Do you find like brands like this deceptive? Is it cool? Like, do you guys have any thoughts on bigger breweries putting out like more craft options but not being transparent?
I think that, there's some transparency that I think is lacking a little bit. I know that the, the Great American Beer Festival, I think, is limiting the who can be displayed as a craft brewer right now. And, obviously you guys, I'm sure, know this, InBev and all those others that have bought a lot of independent breweries aren't allowed to really show up there. And I think that, maybe having the independent label a little bit more prominently displayed on some of the packaging would be helpful.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, just separating everybody. The thing is, with the bigger beer, like having pulse on what's going on with craft, like the thing that bothers me is that they can buy up so much space. When you go to the mountains these days and you go to any of the ski resorts, 10 Barrel is everywhere because they have AB money with a craft appearance, and then they can just pay to get into all those places. But then the other part of me too is like we're so far down the rabbit hole with a lot of this stuff that we know things that other people don't, and other people just don't give a shit. They're just like, I don't care really who makes it. Like, I just want a good beer and be able to carry on with my day. And at a certain point, you're like, all right, well, why am I worried about it? What does it matter to me?
Yeah, I mean, there's a million different opinions on that whole subject. For me, part of the thing that makes craft beer special is the independent companies that started the sort of craft beer movement. Although people always make fun of me when I say movement or revolution, but there was a certain independence to that and a certain community that went along with that was maybe different than other kinds of businesses. Sometimes people say, well, you don't buy small batch cell phones, you don't get small batch toothpaste or small batch soda, so why do you care about the beer? And I guess the answer is because I can, because there are that many small businesses that make craft beer because of the kind of attitude and the sort of fun, independent attitude that came up with that industry.
Yeah.
That I like to stick with it. I know, since I write about it, I know all these guys. I would prefer to support them. I don't, I have nothing against Coors necessarily, but I would, I have batch. I drink batch 19 sometimes. I have a Colorado Native or an ACTB or something. But I prefer to get the smaller beers. So there definitely is. They do hide the fact that they are big companies. Like at Coors Field, they own a brewery called Hop Valley. They have a big stand there for Hop Valley. You wouldn't know that was owned by Coors.
Yeah.
It looks like a craft brewery. At Mile High Stadium, AB InBev has Goose Island. They have 10 Barrel. Right. They've got Breckenridge. They've got them all lined up, so you think you have all these different choices of craft beer. And in reality, they're all just, they're all Budweiser or AB InBev brands.
Yeah, that's the thing that bothers me the most. Is it's not like I don't care if you make small batch or craft beers, or if you buy a company for the sake of growing your business. But I hate the lack of transparency and the fact that you're actively trying to dupe people for the sake of profitability is the part that it kind of weirds me out about the whole thing. But I know great people that work for the big breweries. Mm-hmm. I know shitty people that work for the big breweries, and vice versa with craft. With craft beer, I think a big part of it is the fact that it's an art, right? Because there are subtle nuances, even between amber ales and IPAs. Somebody can actually put their own spin on it that you experience with all of your senses. And because of that, people are just drawn to it. They put a stamp of approval on it. It becomes part of their identity. So I think that's why people get so emboldened by picking a side between certain breweries, whether it's craft, whether it's macro or anything.
I just think that, what was it, 2 years ago when that Super Bowl commercial came out, and they said that, craft brewery was a joke. And then now,
I remember that one. Yeah,
and then whatever, InBev is buying all these craft breweries like Breckenridge and stuff out of San Diego.
They're like, we've had the perfect recipe the entire time. What is all this?
Well, one of the more comical things was when AB InBev bought Elysian the week before the Super Bowl, and then in their commercial they had actually said we don't make things like a peach pumpkin ale because that's stupid and silly.
Sissy.
But then the guy that created the peach pumpkin ale was my friend Steve Luke, who was the head brewer at Elysian. So it was just like a double slap in the face.
Sounds like a fake name.
Yeah.
Steve Luke.
Before we go too far into the episode without giving these guys a proper intro, because we kind of changed up the order, so we just wanted to make sure these guys had a beer in front of them early.
Do you want to know the times?
We want to know the times, but then we also want to know a bit about them.
Totally. Yeah. Type 5. Yeah. Unfortunately, neither of you were able to crack the top 10 of the leaderboard.
Oh, God. I tried.
Yeah. Keith, you came in, you're sitting 12th.
I'm though, I want to go age bracket. I feel like
you're in the
age
senior
bracket,
division.
right,
for sure.
Exactly. In my age bracket, I feel like I'm probably...
How old are you?
I'm 42, so...
You're not the oldest person.
I guess I'm wrong again. So then I was definitely not tops in my age bracket.
Keith, you came in at 8.13 seconds, which is pretty good. Jonathan, you are not only in the older age bracket, but you chose a stout, and you came in at 9.02 seconds.
Very commendable.
I will take that. I'll take it.
Honestly, under 10, I think that's pretty good.
I think so.
Absolutely incredible.
Especially if you haven't chugged a beer in a while. That's something to be proud of.
Yeah, I haven't. I don't remember the last beer I chugged, to be honest.
Well, now you'll remember it was a peanut butter milk stout.
No, I will,
Or you'll forget, one of the two.
Probably the best thing to do.
Yeah,
that's what mostly happens nowadays is I forget.
Yeah. So we like to do a thing on the show called Type 5. As comedians, we're expected to do sometimes our best material in less than 5 minutes. So what we essentially just want to know about you guys is, how you're involved with the beer industry, a little bit of your background in the beer business, and what you do now, and that's kind of just the general gist of it.
Great. Do you want to go first?
Sure. Yep. I am born and raised in Denver. I started homebrewing when I was 17 because a friend of mine lived down the street from a homebrew shop, and he was not old enough to drink. I was, because you could drink 3.2 beer when I was growing up if you were 18, but they changed the law, and I was grandfathered in, and my friend Patrick was not. So we started homebrewing, and it was awesome, and we homebrewed for a number of years. I later on went on to journalism school, and I've been a writer and editor and columnist for the past 25 years or so. Most recently, I was the managing editor at Westword, where I worked for about 10 years. And when I got there in 2007, there was really no one around writing about beer. There were 2 bloggers, one in Fort Collins and one in Colorado Springs, and the Post and the Rocky Mountain News. May it rest in peace.
RB, yeah. Throw
Props.
Yeah, they had some beer writers. Dick Crack was, they called him Mr. Beer at the Denver Post. He would write about beer sometimes. And so I started blogging in addition to my editing about craft beer and the craft brewers that were around. And it was a really good time to start doing that because starting in around 2010, this scene just absolutely exploded with Strange Craft being the first taproom-only brewery in Denver that didn't package and didn't have food. And when they opened, there were, I forget, 8, 9, or 10 breweries in the city of Denver. There are now close to 80, depending on how you count. So it has been an unbelievable blast to cover that industry for the past 12 years.
You even wrote a book about it, didn't you?
Yep, and so I...
Nice plug. Nice plug.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, he's got a big smile on his face, so I figured I'd
yeah.
just sneak that in there. That's amazing. That's
Yep.
really
Get the
cool that you've
book.
been able to document that, and then also putting out a book is just, it's a feat in and of itself, you know, between actually putting pen to paper and then getting it published and get the distribution for it. So congratulations, man. That's huge.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. It was a really fun process. It was supposed to take me 6 months. Instead, it took me 2 years. But
Yep.
it is out, and it is called Denver Beer: A History of Mile High Brewing, and it covers beer and brewing going all the way back to Denver's founding in 1858 and the first brewery in 1859, all the way through that history, through Prohibition, after Prohibition, consolidation of all the breweries, and then the beginnings of the craft beer movement. Again, I'll use that word. In the late 70s, and then about 2/3 of the book I'd say are about craft beer and the breweries that have opened, and the different milestones that have taken place since 1979 when Boulder Beer opened. And the book goes right up through as recent as I could do it. Things changed so fast in the industry. I was sending in last minute corrections at the last minute.
Just like editing stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's so interesting because I feel like from my perspective when I talk about beer is the time around Prohibition and what the different breweries chose to do, whether they chose to actually sell beer illegally or they changed to like malt soda or anything like that was fascinating. And then there was like this kind of things kind of stayed the same up until like the 60s and 70s, and then the craft beer movement kind of started.
Yeah, I mean, most of them went out of business
Yeah.
with Prohibition, which actually started in Colorado in 1916, 4 years before it did nationally. And when Prohibition was over, there were only a few breweries left, or only a few that had made it through by making malted milk or soda or ceramics, which is what Coors did.
You
or
still had to
other
have the
products.
systems and
Yeah.
the capacity to do that too.
Right.
You know, not everybody could make it in those things on a scale that was going to be profitable either, or have the distribution points, delivery, all that stuff.
I'm from the Midwest, from near St. Louis. In St. Louis, there was a brewery called Lemp, which was huge. It was bigger than Anheuser-Busch, and they were, they dominated the market until Prohibition. Then they chose to, kind of just switch to sell like malt milk and malted soda, and Anheuser-Busch, I think, decided to keep selling beer illegally, and Lemp went out of business. Several people in the family ended up it was kind of tragic, committed suicide and everything. Yeah, but Lemp had all these caves underneath the brewery.
Yeah.
Lemp had all these caves underneath the brewery that they'd ferment all their lagers in, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And then Anheuser-Busch just took off after that.
I'm just going to call beer malted milk from now on.
Yeah, there you go. Yep. Good for you. Good for your kids.
Yeah. So before we move on to Keith to get his type 5, we do want to fill our glasses and have something to drink. So can you tell us a little bit about the guest beer that you brought? Because I haven't had anything from Westbound and Down before, but I've been looking forward to it, and thank you for bringing it.
Sure. Yeah. Westbound and Down in Idaho Springs is a great brewery, and They are opening they're going to open a second place up in Lafayette next year, probably in 2021. But they were big winners at the Great American Beer Festival this last year. They won either 2 or 3, I think 2 medals, and they also won one of the overall awards, I think small brewery of the year.
Yeah, I think that one on the can, it even says that they won a silver 2019 for that beer.
Yes, it does.
Woo! That's what I get for looking at it.
Yeah,
Yep.
woo.
So
Korey
this
can
is-
read.
I know pictures good.
I could be wrong, but I heard that they have a couple of female brewers up there as well.
At Westbound?
Yeah.
They may. I don't. I know there's a ton of women brewers now
That's
around. I don't know if Westbound has any or not, but there are a bunch. There are a bunch now. But this double IPA is really good. Like you said, it won the silver. This is the first canning run for it. They just started canning. So
How long have they been in business?
Westbound, I want to say they opened about 4 years ago.
Okay.
In Idaho Springs, attached to the is it the Buffalo restaurant up there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Oh,
was-
yeah. Okay.
I was just there about 4 months ago, and they make amazing beer. I always try to promote Westbound when possible. So I'm glad you brought this, and I love doubles.
Obviously, big Kenny Powers fans. That's always good.
Yeah.
How do you not? The fact that they haven't gotten a cease and desist for that is insane to me.
I can't believe how many breweries have not gotten cease and desists for.
Danny McBride seems like a chill dude, though.
He does seem like a
he
pretty
probably
chill
doesn't give a
dude, but
shit.
I'm sure it's never the person. It's always like the lawyers involved. They're like,
HBO.
you gotta like
those
stop
lawyers.
that. Yeah, I'm sure
Yeah.
HBO. Oh yeah, you snake.
snakes.
You snake son of a bitch.
I feel that I've always tell folks on my tours that naming beers has to be one of the hardest jobs in the U.S. now because there are so many
Oh yeah.
names for beers. So
Yeah,
trying to find a good name for a beer or a beer company is got to be a challenge.
It's good. I mean, in terms of like writing, I don't know. I feel like it's just another creative aspect where like as writers, you kind of just create something that like there's always a new angle on something that's been done, right? Like you could always do like Southbound and Down, and that might cause something too, but I feel like there's always multiple angles for each thing, so maybe it's a simple little tweak.
As soon as you get copyright laws involved, it's game over. Because for you writing a joke, if somebody's like doing something very similar to what you're doing, you can just like punch them in the gut.
No, if anybody does any jokes about Pat Sajak, I lose my fucking mind. I get so mad.
That's my thing.
Those are yours.
So is there any reason in particular that you brought the Westbound and Down, other than the fact that it's delicious and it's great? But was there something? Did you just go there recently and have an experience? Did you just pick something up like from a friend or at the store?
I was just super excited because I saw it at Argonaut when I was on the way over here. And,
Gotta get something.
yeah, I've only had I've only had it once, and it was at the Big Beers Festival back in January. And since it won the silver medal, I been wanting to. I was hoping that I'd be able to find a 4-pack of it somewhere in town because I know they're doing a little bit of distribution. So when I saw it there, I was really excited. They are clearly one of the breweries that is on the rise in Colorado.
Yeah.
And
It says it on the can, from Colorado to the world.
Whoa.
Boom. Yep.
Prestige worldwide.
Meta.
Suck on that, Colorado native.
It's also nice that there's a good brewery in Idaho Springs. I don't want to speak ill of Tommy Knocker.
Well,
but
that was-
it's nothing to be excited about.
That was something I was
in.
intrigued by because Tommy Knocker really fucking ran that town for a while.
Tommy Knocker, the Honey Brown was my beer to go to when I first moved to Colorado.
When I was 17,
Yeah.
I was sneaking beers from Dad's fridge.
When I like the sweet stuff, that was the game.
Yeah, I mean those guys are an institution up there, and
Yeah.
they make great solid beers, but they haven't really moved into the realm that everybody else is in now.
That's because they're
New-
focused on
new
their
exciting.
sodas.
They make good sodas. They make root beer. But yeah, that was everybody's. I mean, Tommy Knocker was around even way back when I was, back in the 1700s when I was a youth. Yeah, and they were one of the first craft breweries that I tried.
Well,
This beer is really good.
Yeah,
it
it's
doesn't.
nice.
Yeah,
It doesn't taste like a double, really.
it's hard
Like-
to go. Well, in my opinion, it's hard to go wrong with the double. You just know what it's going to hit you, and then
Yeah.
it hits you.
Well, it's also nice to just have like a dry, like biting IPA. Something that's very West Coast, and just the bitterness is apparent. And it's there in like a good portion. Yeah, just like a classic IPA. It's nice to have.
Yep.
So, Keith, give us your type 5. Tell us a little bit about you, because I stumbled upon you in a very just strange
Yeah, I wondered
way.
how you guys found
Not
me.
like a back alley kind of way, but so I was I wanted to have a beer tour guide on the show because I know that that's a very popular industry here in Colorado with beer tourism and people showing them around town. And I just went to Airbnb Experience, and that led me to you.
Yeah, I am a Airbnb guide. It's interesting what the clientele I have is mostly folks from outside of Colorado that are coming in and wanting to have, like you said earlier, that Colorado experience, I think, of having a beer tour. So most of the people that I actually deal with are tourists to Colorado, which I think is interesting because they don't necessarily know a ton about beer. And so it's kind of doing some minimal education on kind of the beer scene and what's, what are good places to try while they're here.
They're looking for like an overall like beer experience that's not necessarily specific to Denver or Colorado, but they just want to know more about beer in general.
Correct. And I think I just kind of, I assumed when people came, because most Colorado people that I know are into, hoppier things like IPAs and whatnot. And that I had to kind of change my mind frame on that pretty quickly when I was getting folks from, non necessarily craft beer drinking places that were a little bit floored by how hoppy some of our beers were. So
Cowards.
People looking for
Wussies.
ESBs.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I had
Give
to
me
really
a good amber.
Right.
Oatmeal
So so I had to kind of modify my IPA tour into a kind of a a more gentle tour when I started. So I'm actually,
More
like I said
moisturizer,
early,
very soft hands.
right. Like I said
Gentle
earlier, I'm
experience.
a attorney by trade, and I went on a trip with my family and wife and her family, and did a Airbnb experience in Spain a few years ago, and just was like floored by how fun it was, and said I could do this in Denver, and so it gets me away from the computer. And
I thought you were gonna say your wife.
exactly.
My wife.
It's just like I know where this is going.
She's gonna listen to this.
She signs up for the tours, actually.
Totally.
Yeah, she's like,
This was her idea.
Yeah,
Get the
she's
fuck
like,
out of the house.
Go, just go. Okay. Whatever you do, just go. Yeah. Started hosting tours about a year and a half ago, and it's been awesome. I hang out with people that are new to Denver all the time, so I can tell the same basic facts, and people are just floored with how amazing this town is and all the beer that's happening here. So,
How often do you get kids on your tours?
I've had a couple, and those are a little challenging because when we go to breweries, all they really have is kombucha. So I basically say kind of have sodas or something that you bring along.
I want to bring this up now
Yeah.
because it comes up from time to time kind of very casually and we always brush over it. Because when we interview the brewers, they still want business. They might not love kids in their brewery, but they still want business. So let's just dive in. How do you guys feel about kids in breweries?
First of all, how terrible of a parent do you have to be to drag your kid on like a 6-stop brewery tour? I mean, I get bringing them to one brewery and hanging out for a little bit because they've got adult Jenga and Connect 4. And
Yeah.
they can
Adult
occupy
Jenga,
themselves.
not kid Jenga.
That's fine, but I mean, Jenga sets that are so tall that they would actually crush the child. But to take them on 6 stops over the course of an entire day is a little overkill.
They definitely, the kids get a little bored after a while when they're not drinking and
But if
Essentially-
they're drinking, they're having a great
As
time.
long as they're sneaking some hooch on the side, they're having a fun time.
Now, what I've definitely had on my tours is folks with fake IDs, which has
no
been
way.
yes. So it's always fun to walk up to a bartender with the IDs of everybody on my tour and have them go, "Oh, this one's fake," and then have to go back to somebody who's paid money for a tour and say, "Hey, sorry, you can't get any beer on this tour."
Yeah.
I can't even
We
believe
still
that
want to
they.
hang out. We're cool.
Yeah, I mean, who does that? Like,
Yeah.
how old are most of the
I'd
folks?
say they're mostly like if I had to kind of set an age range, I would say they're probably about 23 or 24 to about 40.
18.
Yeah,
He's got a really
exactly.
niche
Yeah,
market.
apparently
I've got
they're
that. I've got that,
18
yeah.
to 23.
That's
to about
actually his
40,
part of his
yeah.
pitch. He's like, hey,
Right.
listen, I know getting into bars
I know
is
how to
hard.
get you in. So, And then I have to tell them, hey, sorry, don't want to lose my life.
This is
Trojan
a-
horse with a tour guide.
This is a library card for Duluth, Minnesota. Like, what?
Yeah, this isn't going to work.
Oh man, that's pretty wild. I would like what? How ballsy is that to think that like maybe that's? I guess I get like
It's not just trying to sneak one beer. It's trying to like get beers for free or from 4 different breweries.
right.
Yeah, they're trying to guzzle them.
But I mean, you pay extra money to get the fake ID. You pay money to get into the beer tour. Like what? Rich ass kids. That's like be more creative.
When you're 18, you're lawless. They think they are being creative.
That's
I had
true.
to find this man on Airbnb Experience. You know what I mean? He's not like putting out ad. Well, do you have an ad on Craigslist? Because that could be
No,
shady.
no.
Okay. So
It's
I feel like
usually
they're probably already taking a pretty creative route. Like they're
it's
not just
usually
showing
a
up to
couple
bar.
where there's like one that's a little embarrassed. They're not 21
Oh,
yet.
and the
guy
other one
that's
is.
40 and the
Yeah,
other one's 16. I
Right,
get it.
exactly.
Yeah, that
Just
I
like-
guess I
just
don't
like
know.
Thailand.
But if that, like, still just fucking have your dude go buy you a 6-pack and stay home.
Yeah,
because you can get
yeah.
drunk that way.
Yeah, well, and you can try a lot of different beers that way too.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, don't-
You have to
why-
go on my tour?
Just wait until you're old enough to go on the tour. Just
Jonathan, do you ever bring your kids to breweries?
Oh God! So
That sounds like a guilty man.
I'm the
Well,
guy.
I
I
re-
do
I
beer
mean,
tours with my kids.
I rarely get into the subject because the passions are incited so enormously about dogs and kids in breweries.
Very Democrat,
Yeah.
Republican.
I mean,
And,
it's beyond. I mean, it's even worse. I think, than like, and it's nuts. But I think. Can I swear on your show?
oh fuck yeah.
fuck yeah, dude.
I mean, people are either assholes or they're not. And
Truth.
if you are an asshole, then the way you handle your kids and your dogs is going to mirror that. And if you are not, then it's not. If you're an asshole, you change your kid's diaper on the table.
I feel like I'm listening to a Buddhist monk.
Well, I mean-
Very zen.
You bring your dog, you bring
Dalai
your
Lama
biter
say.
dog, right, who's bitten someone in the past, but you just want to hang out with them because you can't leave them at home.
Yeah.
If you're not,
Same with your kid. Bit somebody in the
yeah,
past.
I mean, if
He's a
you're-
biter.
Yeah, if they're a biter, if they're not a biter, either baby or kid or dog, then you're fine. If you want to change their diaper, take them out to the car, and be aware of that. Don't be like, well, it was snowing. Like you knew it was snowing before you were going out. And also, if your dog hates other dogs, then maybe it's a good idea to not bring them because there's going to be other dogs there.
Have a
So
little awareness.
it's just that I mean that's what it is. You're either a jerk or you're not, and you got to, if you bring your kids, you got to monitor them. And yeah, I mean, I brought my kids. I wanted to go out and have pizza and beer and do all that stuff when my kids were young, and I brought them with me. And if my kids started throwing pepperonis across then that was it. You're out.
You should have joined him. That sounds fun.
It
That
is
sounds like a
fun.
pretty good
Food
time.
fight. Yeah.
I did throw one.
What is throwing pepperoni
No
and
one
not a
was
fun
looking like.
sentence?
Right, yeah.
So I was at this bar throwing some pepperoni.
That sounds like a euphemism when you say it that way. Slinging some peps.
But yeah, it's mean also to bring your kids if they're bored as hell, and I mean,
It's
if
cruel,
they're good
man.
for
Right.
if they're good for one beer, they have a coloring book and your iPad and whatever, and they can handle a beer, then stay for a beer, and then if they melt down, you're out. That's
I
just
also
how it
wonder,
is.
like, how much, because I don't have kids, so I wonder, like, how much, like, their age has an effect on, like, if they're a newborn, yeah, that's fine, like,
There's not a lot of decision making going on there. I get it.
but, like, if they're, I mean, so one thing is, one of my good friends, we went to a New Terrain up in Golden, and we were there midday on, like, a Wednesday, and these 3, like, preteen kids came in, no parents, no adult supervision, and they all ordered kombucha inside of the table, and then right behind them on the wall is a sign that says no unsupervised children. And so we took a picture of these 3 kids at the brewery by themselves in front of that sign, and my friend posted it in the Colorado Let's Talk Craft Beer group and was accosted for it. Like,
Really?
people were so offended that he posted that picture. And it's like, listen, the kids were clearly unsupervised. Like, they're old enough to go order kombucha, but they don't need to go to a brewery to do it. You know what I mean? Like, it's so many people are.
I feel like New Terrain is a scene. I can't go to New Terrain without it being crazy packed.
Oh yeah,
and the fact that they would show up there and think, oh, we can just order some kombucha and sit by ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, it
It's
was.
that golden vibe, though, where people are like, I want to be healthy. I just rode my mountain bike here. I'm going to have some booch, and I'm going to have a beer. My kids are here. You're just going to have to deal with it. And I'm going to get a crepe outside.
Just going to hit the food truck.
It's a totally golden day. So, Keith, tell us about the beer that you brought that you wanted to share with us. And talk about.
So I brought a Four Noses IPA, which I like the IPA, but I'm actually just a huge fan of Four Noses. And
They make really good beer.
I can't understand how a brewery that's only been around for 5 years makes such good beer across the board, in my opinion.
I mean, if you were starting out from a good spot, then you're set up for success, really. I think that's kind of why they decided to open.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'd love some more insight on this, but like their milkshake, velvet milkshake beers and their hoppy lagers, I think are great. And I think
This is an awesome beer. It's really clean.
yeah,
crisp.
in my opinion, I don't understand how they can make such good beer for being so young as they are. So I'd love some more insight, or maybe you disagree.
No, I don't.
Maybe
I wish
you should
I
hire Jonathan for your tours.
I should definitely.
Yeah, or you could
got
just
some
plant
good-
me. You could plant
Exactly.
me in
I'm
the
just,
brewery
or I'll just record you.
Yeah, do
Or
an audio recording.
you know what I'll do is I'll do some book ratings.
there it is.
This is from Jonathan.
Sell the books on the tour.
Man, glad we could bring you guys together.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't really know as much about Four Noses, but this beer in particular is, let's see, so About Damn Time IPA. Like I said, really clean, crisp. It's unfiltered. No, sorry, it is filtered. Blah blah blah. It's like, well, it's like got a slight haze to it, but not doesn't seem like hazy by design kind of thing. But yeah, just got that crisp, bitter flavor, and really great. I dig it. I don't know, Jonathan, did you want to add some stuff about Four Noses?
They're one of the best breweries I think in the state right now, and I wish I knew how a brewery that young does
Yeah.
it, but I don't. I don't. I mean, I think I always just think of it like you mentioned earlier, being an artist.
Some of us are funny, me. Some of us aren't, Korey.
That's me. That's my job.
I always usually say that, I typically think a craft brewery makes one or two good beers and the rest are kind of filling out the menu. But everything I
Sure.
drink from Four Noses just seems to be such high quality that I can't really understand it.
Yeah, it's it comes down to, I guess, I think Tommy, the owner, maybe was the first brewer, and I think he just had. Yeah, it's like you said. I mean, it's Monet versus who was that guy who painted with the squirrels, painted by numbers on TV with the big hair or whatever, and he's great.
Bob
but
Ross?
How dare you
Bob
insult
Ross.
Bob
Don't
Ross?
insult
How
the Bob.
dare you?
Yeah,
Get out of
let's-
my house.
I'm sorry. He was kind of amazing the way he can mash those.
That afro.
Yeah, exactly.
That afro's cool.
Something to be commended for.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, though, like taping a banana to the wall type thing. Totally.
So who would you guys, I'll ask the best and the worst, if you will. Well, who do you think are doing the best things in Colorado right now? You can pick two. And then what? You don't have to name any like breweries specifically, but what are two? Like,
Declaration.
Yeah, we don't need a hard stamp. But like, what's a style that you just fucking hate? Like that you just really don't love?
For me, I don't like salty beer, so I'm not a big fan of Gozes, which are the tart wheat beers with the salt.
Yeah.
I know people love them, and I have nothing against them, and I have nothing against the people who love them.
If you do, you can tell us now.
Nope.
Like you can you can make a statement.
Nope, they're awesome, those people, and the beers I'm sure are great too. There's something about salty beers that especially the tart salty beers that does not agree with me.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So who do you really love in Colorado right now? I mean, I know you said Four Noses is one of the best in the state, but can you name like one or two other places that you're like, these guys are on fire? Maybe somebody that we might not know of as well or expect. I know because like Weldworks gets a lot of accolades. Bierstadt's got a lot of great things going for them. But is there anybody in particular as like somebody that's integrated into the writing scene?
I mean, we talked about Westbound and Down. I really think that they're going to explode.
Yeah.
Four Noses is amazing. New Image, which is the other beers
Drinking a
that
couple
we've
of
got
those.
here. I think those guys took a huge step forward in the last year. They are amazing.
I actually really like Telluride Brewing Company. I think they have a lot of, for being kind of pretty remote out in the southwest corner of the state, they have a lot, like everything they do is pretty high quality in my opinion anyway.
Yeah, what's did you try their hop oil beers that they came out with?
I haven't tried one of those, but I do like the fish water,
Yeah,
which is their
Fishwater's
double.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is their double. Which
I just
is
I just had one of their newer coffee stouts. That's very, very good.
yeah.
I really like that one. Yeah, Telluride's got some good beers for sure.
When you live in the middle of the mountains, you got nothing but time to experiment.
It's true.
Now, what about the hop oil beers did you like specifically? Because I love, it seems like the hop oil, anytime you're using hop oil or lupulin dust, you can just add such a concentrated form of whatever flavor or aroma or bitterness you're trying to impart without necessarily adding a lot of body, which makes things like way more flavorful, but not necessarily more filling.
Yeah, so I've only tried. They did 3 of them, and I've tried 2 of them. And to be honest, I thought they kind of they overdid it slightly. I love Telluride and I love their beers, but these 2 were almost overpowering. They smelled amazing, but the flavor was a little bit overpowering. So I think maybe they dial it back just a little bit. But it is really strong, these oils. The amount of hop flavor and aroma that you can put in to beers with so much less product is pretty intense.
Yeah, I remember so I used to work for Sierra, and when they came out with Hop Hunter, the idea behind the beer was they wanted to be able to replicate a fresh harvest flavor profile like all year round, which is why they started using hop oil in the beer. It didn't necessarily work out the way that they wanted to. The beer didn't take off, even though it was great. And then you still wound up getting some like kind of cheesy fungus kind of aromas and flavors off of it after it aged to a certain point. But the idea of being able to basically have like a vat of oil that you could keep like at the brewery that's just like fresh hop flavor was definitely intriguing, and I'm sure that the industry will continue to grow and it'll be more stable like in the future.
Yeah, it is. Those oils are really, I think they're going to be a huge part of beer's future once they are able to come up with best practices or standard ways of adding them and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it'll probably create some consistency in the farming industry, because you don't have to worry as much about like the yield on a particular season, where you can just like concentrate the oils or the powders and then put it into like a vessel that you can then sell to other people, as opposed to having to be dependent on the flower specifically, like whenever you're harvesting.
Yep.
I would say that, what I've kind of seen on my tours, and I've probably done about 1,000 people or so on my tours, is that
Wow.
females, I feel like, are very drawn towards the sours, which I personally don't like, but I always say, like, that's kind of a go-to because of the fruity flavors. Goza as well.
Berliner Weiss or any like kind of lactose sour like that it mimics red wine. I'm sorry, not red wine. White wine and rosé and things like that a lot.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't taste like how you would characteristically describe a beer. It actually compares more to like a grape type of flavor. So it makes it more approachable for people. Even though when you think sour beer, you're like, there's no way a non-beer drinker would like that. It's like, well, depending on like if it's the right kettle sour and you got fruit additions to it, it's even more approachable.
I would say personally that I, as much as I want to like them, because I feel like it would be cool to like them, I can't get into Scotch blacks and whatnot beers. I just, as much as I try.
Is it the Scotch? Like
I
the
feel like
flavor?
it's just a hard beer.
Don't lawyers love Scotch?
There you go. I can do the Scotch single malt, but that's fine. But the beer is just not.
Because if I was picking up one thing from you, it's that you're very cool. So this is kind of a surprise. So Scotch ales aren't your thing.
Scotch ales, can't do them.
So you love Four Noses. Is there any other brewery that what's a favorite stop on your tours?
So
Like,
I
where
do
you really
I
like
do
to go?
tours down in the Rhino district in Denver, and so we always end at Odell, and I can't say any bad things about Odell.
No.
I just it's obviously it's one of the last employee-owned breweries, which I think is amazing, and they've all got a business card I think that says co-owner, which is pretty awesome, and everything that they make I think is just really high quality.
I think
does well.
It's really cool too that they have some brewery specific beers to that Rhino tap house.
Exactly.
Whereas like they're based out of Fort Collins, but they still make beers in Denver for Denver specifically.
And most of the people that are bartending, a lot of times you can sample some of their batches that are up on the list there.
Yeah.
I know one guy, Derek, did it was a red carpet velvet IPA. for the Oscars.
I had that.
Yeah, I actually got a crowler of that and brought it home. It was awesome.
Nice.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Way to bring that. Yeah.
Yeah, where is it?
Yeah, man. Tell me about all the Christmas presents you thought about getting me, Dad.
Bonus.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have stand-up comedy shows there at the
do?
Odell Tap House.
My buddy Sammy Anzer runs a great show there.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Once a month, I believe.
Yep.
You can look it up online.
It's no rotating tap, but it's still pretty good.
So one thing that I thought was really interesting when I went to the Odell Tap Room in Rino was the fact that they didn't even have Odell IPA on tap, which is one of my favorite IPAs because I'm more of a classic West Coast guy. And they had like 5 different hazy IPAs on. And when I just asked, the bar manager about it, and he just basically said, well, we just brew what people want down here, and everybody wants hazy stuff. So if we have the flexibility to brew something small on a pilot system, then we're just going to make what people want, and it's all hazy stuff right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, I actually served Odell IPA at my wedding. My wife and I have been a big fan of it for years. I think it's just it's one of the best IPAs in my opinion.
Yeah.
You should have been dancing instead of serving, Okay.
Pouring beer at your own wedding. It's kind of a raw deal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Jonathan, as somebody that's been an integral part of the beer scene here for so long and seeing the evolution of, new breweries coming by, new styles and whatnot, tell us a little bit about, your book and, why you wrote it. Because ultimately, I think it's important for somebody like you to be a historian of the beer culture here. It's really exciting that you came out with something.
Yeah, I mean, one of the great things, or one of the surprising things, was that no one had done it yet. I guess that there was no beer history.
It's kind of how we felt about this podcast.
Yeah,
There weren't any other Colorado beer podcasts out there, or at least not a lot of them.
There's a few of them, but especially not funny ones.
That's for sure. So the fact that nobody had really done it before had to be wow, I guess I could be the person, and you were qualified to do it.
Yeah, I've been. My dad also was very much into history, and he wrote a book actually about the history of medicine in Colorado. So it was kind of cool. Thanks. To also write a history book, but history has always been interesting to me, being a Denver native, and having grown up here, and being born the same year that the last Denver brewery went out of business before the Wind Coop opened, which was Tivoli Brewing in 1969. I just felt like I had a lot of connections to Denver beer and beer history. And I wanted to tell the story of craft beer as well in sort of a historical format and put it into the same kind of context that history gets put into. So I wanted to talk about milestones. I wanted to talk about the big changes that happened over time, how they related, why things that happened 70, 80, 90 years ago affect what happens today, and kind of tie everything together.
And you said you have a degree in journalism?
Yeah, I have a master's in journalism.
See, that's a master's. Damn, you're smart.
Yeah.
I just think it's incredible. Anybody that has a degree in journalism that figures out a way to use that in the real world is fucking heroic to me. That's incredible because it's such a worthless thing for most people.
Says the psychology major.
Well, yeah, my
English actually. Thank you.
My undergrad is in anthropology, so it took me 2 times to.
It wasn't totally figured out. Yeah.
Yep.
That's great, man. Yep. Well, that's really exciting, especially. So the book's going to be available in stores around Colorado. I assume Amazon, things of that nature.
Yep, book is Amazon, Barnes and Noble, both online. It is also it should be at the Tattered Cover.
Nice.
I am going to be doing 5 different book selling and signing events to start off with in March and April.
Any of those at breweries or just bookstores?
No, they're all at. So the first one's at Hops and Pie, and then Cerebral, Strange Craft, which I did. I made a beer with them. We actually picked a beer from Charlie Papazian's the Complete Joy of Homebrewing.
Classic.
We kind of
Nice.
gave it a strange brewing twist and did that. We upscaled it for his system, and he's going to release that.
That's awesome.
So we'll have that one, and then also Dry Dock, and then Falling Rock.
Oh, cool.
Those
Oh,
are
yeah,
eight.
man. So 2 questions. What's your favorite beer from the Denver area that just isn't available anymore? And then I got to follow up after that.
Ooh, favorite beer from
'Cause
Denver.
if you've
that's-
seen everything from the start to the beginning for the most part and documenting it, like, is there stuff that you're like, God damn, I wish that was still around?
Trying to think of beers that I really, one of the first breweries that I really got into as a craft breweries was Left Hand, and I know it's not Denver area, but
Sure.
I lived in Longmont for 3 years, and I worked for the Longmont Daily Times Call in 1996 through 1999, and Left Hand had just opened, I think, in 94, and I was just really into their beers because they were all over the place up there. And they had some funky ones. They had one called Made Marionberry because everybody in the 90s had to make a berry beer, a fruit beer of some sort. And so I miss Made Marionberry a lot for some strange reason. And I miss some of the old Left Hand beers. They've overhauled their lineup. They used to make a Christmas beer that tasted like every spice you could possibly pull out of your...
The classic winter warmer.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I mean they just dumped the spices in there, and I just love that beer. I don't know, maybe it would taste different to me today, but I do miss those beers.
I wasn't asked this question, but I'm going to go ahead and answer it anyways. Actually, Declaration used to have an horchata pale ale that I
nice.
absolutely loved. It was one of my favorite beers ever, and I don't think they've been brewing it. They probably last time they brewed it was probably the last time they paid their taxes, but it was very, very good, and I do miss that beer a lot. So I talk shit about Declaration, but I do really enjoy their beer.
I think Four Noses had a beer, which I don't think is on tap anymore. That was I'm actually a fan of hoppy lagers, which I think are kind of a new thing as well, and I don't see it on tap right now.
Yeah, just something that isn't around as much. Now, Keith, what are the dumbest things people say on your tours?
Oh my gosh!
Do you have any highlights? Is there anything but beer on this tour?
They go on the tour and they're like, "Hey, do you want to be on our podcast?"
I think just in general, I think people are a little shocked by when I think I'm shocked when people are shocked by how hoppy beers can be. I think I get a lot of folks from non-beer places that are pretty used to traditional lager beers and pilsners that are a little floored when they get something like a 8.5 ABV.
Do you have anything that tastes like regular beer?
Yeah.
Just Busch Light?
Right.
Yeah.
Anything that tastes like the natural light that I'm used to.
Well, people sign up for these tours, I'm sure, because they want to experience like the vibe of the city. Like if the
Correct.
brewing community, especially in a concentrated area, speaks to like it gives life to that part of town, then people just want to be a part of that experience. But it always amazes me how many people will go to a craft beer oriented bar or a brewery specifically and then just still be very primitive in what they choose and how they feel about all of it. They're like, I don't know, I only drink Bud. You know,
Right. I
only
had somebody
drink
on
Bud
a
Light.
tour one time who told me as soon as we, I do at each brewery we do a couple of tasters. If it's a couple, we'll try to do 4 different tasters. So there's a possibility of getting 8 to 16 different types of beer. And I had one woman tell me one time that she doesn't really like beer.
Nice. What?
And I'm like,
Welcome to
huh,
the tour.
Yeah.
Well, how do I do this?
Oops. Yeah.
She had maybe a sip. I feel like, I feel like I'm stranding all these soldiers when she has a sip of each beer, and then there's like, nope, no thank you, and I leave with like four beers full almost.
You got to pound that one when she turns
Yeah,
around.
exactly.
Just
Chug it.
grab it and slam it.
Which we know you can do in about 10 seconds.
Right,
It's,
that says now
pretty good information.
record.
No, you were, 8.5 seconds, right?
Yeah,
I'm sort of bitter about
I
that.
I knew
Good
it was
beer
only
pun.
5.5. It was only 5.5.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we're getting ready to wrap up. I think. Do you have anything else you want to do? I have one thing I want to do.
Well, here, why don't you go with yours, and then I'll see if I have something that comes
Cool.
to mind.
So Keith, you had mentioned up top that you do beer trivia on your tours,
True.
and it sounds like Jonathan will be able to answer these questions, but I doubt I can, and Korey might be able to. Why don't you throw out like 2 or 3 of your trivia questions for us?
I feel like this is like win Ben Stein's money.
So most of my I do 4 rounds. I do 4 rounds of 5 questions each, and we do it at 4 different breweries. I'll save all the easy questions, and I'll give you guys the hard questions, which I do kind of at the end, and we'll see how we go. Here's what I do. I read the question, and then I give 4 different answers, and you just pick which one you think is best. Okay, so there's 3 of you. So here's what we'll do. I'll just read them out, and then you give me the answer you think is best, and I'll tell you the answer. So
We slap you in the face to buzz in.
exactly. Here we go. The last round, which I think is always the hardest round. Senosilicophobia is the fear of A, drowning in beer, B, an empty beer glass, C, forgetting where you left your beer, or D, I made this word up.
C.
I'm going to give him the D.
The fear of an empty beer glass.
Correct.
Damn.
Jonathan.
Damn
I
it.
knew he was going to be good at this.
Damn.
An empty beer glass.
Only because I have it. I have that disorder, so that's why I knew.
It's
All
actually
right.
triggering that you brought it up.
Right, yeah.
Number,
I have to leave now.
yeah, here we go. What's the ABV of the world's strongest beer? And I could be wrong about this because it might have changed, but this was as of last year.
E. You're probably wrong about this.
A, 16.8, B, 28.3, C, 48.9, or D, 67.5.
I'm gonna go B.
B, 28.3. Anybody else?
Jonathan, you got one?
I'm going to say D tentatively. I'm going to say D.
What was
Okay.
D again?
67.5.
I'm going to go D as well.
Go with Jonathan's guess.
Yeah. Smart man.
Any guess who it is? I think you might know.
Yeah, it's those guys from Scotland.
Exactly.
It's the Brewdog guys.
Yeah,
Snake Venom
Brewdog
out
guys.
of.
Is that the one that
it's
they put in a
Brewmeister out
squirrel?
of Scotland.
They made like a squirrel jacket for some of the bottles.
That was
Yeah.
Bob Ross.
Yeah.
Classic Bob
it
Ross
might be
move.
that one. That was one of their highest, or it was the highest when that one came out.
That's
All right,
insane.
I got 2 more good ones. The science of beer brewing is
We'll
called
decide if they're good or not.
A, Brewentology, B, Zymology, C, Fermentological Science, or D, it's actually a hobby, not a science.
I'll go B.
Wow. Well, you tricked me with the. You're tricking me. Are you trying to trick me?
No, there's no trick questions, I always say.
I'll say C.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with B.
Science of beer brewing is called A, Brewentology, B, Zymology, C, Fermentological Science, or D, it's actually not a hobby, not a science.
I'm gonna say B.
B is
Yep.
correct.
Yep.
Zymology.
Jonathan and I are pretty smart.
Yeah. Well done.
I'm an
We're
idiot.
we're the smartest ones.
I'm very dumb.
Stay at the table.
And here's the last question, which I think with Jonathan might be debatable. I will say, but this is
True
what
or
I
false?
say.
Keith is a fun guy.
This is what I say. Yeah, false, according to my wife. America's oldest brewery is A, Pabst Brewing, B, Anheuser-Busch, C, Yuengling, or D, Coors.
Damn. I'm gonna say Yuengling.
Yingling.
Even though Yuengling sucks, it's Yuengling.
It says it on the bottle. Yuengling, America's oldest brewery.
Not bad.
Well done. I feel like Jonathan would get every question.
I just
right.
copied
Well
Jonathan on that last one. I
Well
wanted
done.
I wanted to say who's got the most blue ribbons. BBR.
So one thing that I like to always talk to people about before we get out of here, we've got more beer in this one if you want more, even though it's like 8%, so you guys have a splash of it. So there's always something that pushes people towards the beer industry. You're a little different, Keith, because you're a lawyer still, but is there a job that you fucking hated before you started getting more involved with the beer business? Or just like, what's your worst job that you've ever had?
Wait, being a lawyer does it count?
It does. You can talk to
I feel
us
like
about
it
that.
totally
You
counts.
can tell your clients how you really feel right now. So.
There was no terrible job that pushed me toward beer since I didn't have a job when I first started making beer. Well, I guess I did. I was working at a place called the Gourmet Alternative down in the Cherry Creek neighborhood.
What a name.
And, we had to wear berets because it was very French themed. And me and my friend Mark would never wear our berets because just bullshit. Like
That
we're not
name
going to wear.
is
It's
means
so
many
bad.
things.
It's so
You're
bad.
like, you want gourmet? Kinda.
Yeah, it's a gourmet alternative.
You
to
could have gourmet, or you could eat out of a dumpster.
It's alternative, baby.
Yeah, it was rough. But then Mark got promoted to assistant manager, and he wore his beret every day, and he made me wear my beret, and we were like buddies. And
What
I
a
was like,
sellout.
I was like, yeah, it was a total sellout, and he sold out, and he would get mad at me when I didn't wear my beret. It was bullshit. So maybe that's what pushed me toward beer. I
What's
have
his
no
name?
idea. His name's Mark. He's
Fuck
a nice,
Mark.
No, he's a nice guy.
Mark?
Well, you're not saying it, but I am.
Yeah, I was mad. I was so
And his
mad.
beret.
That's why you haven't taken your beret off this entire podcast. Right there.
It's very
He's a company
traumatic.
man. Keith, how about you? I mean, like I said, you're a lawyer now. Everybody hates it.
Right.
But is there something that you just like, man, this was the worst job?
Well, I just think that doing this for 8 to 10 years, being a lawyer, working on the computer all the time, I always joke that with people that are doing the tours that I always get to hang out with people that are on vacation, which is always a great thing. And there wasn't a thing that sent me into doing this other than I felt like getting to drink beer and hang out with people that are having a good time all the time is not too bad.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I would call that the real life alternative.
The gourmet alternative.
Right.
If
Yeah.
we're going to be specific.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything you guys want to plug before we get out of here?
I'd plug Jonathan's book. It sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Really
All right.
exciting stuff. And you get your great tours that people, where can people
Right.
find the tours for the Rhino District? Breweries?
EpicDaysTravel.com, or you can just find it on Airbnb under Denver Experiences.
I have something I want to plug.
What's up?
Starting April 2nd, 2020, we have a 9th brewery join the Rotating Tap live shows.
That's true.
Green Mountain Beer Company will be joining us Thursday, April 2nd. So keep a lookout for that.
Yeah, find all of our shows on our Instagram, Rotating Tap Comedy, or our Facebook page. We post all the stuff on there, so you can catch great brewery shows around Denver and the Colorado area every month.
We have a Twitter that I quit posting because Twitter sucks.
Yeah, Twitter plus.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. We appreciate it. You guys rule. Korey sucks. Thank you so much for doing the podcast.
Absolutely.
Cool, thanks,
It's
guys.
awesome.
Thanks.